knowledge is not the key to success. So the librarians would have been the most important people in the world. It's applying it. And I think we have to be much better at helping our leaders apply what they're learning.
In November of this year, it will be 3 years since OpenAI has launched GPT 3.5. And in only those 3 years, we have seen that artificial intelligence has advanced at a faster rate than any technology before, such as the internet or smartphones, for example. Nearly 80% of organizations has reported using AI in some form. And economists have projected that by 2030, it could uplift the global GDP by nearly 3%, which could add between $15 and $20 trillion in value. Despite this, a recent MIT study has found that 95% of pilot programs has failed to move beyond the incubation phase. And it seems that this implementation relies less on the technology and more on the knowledge and the human capabilities of these organizations. We even found evidence in our recently published CEO Outlook report, where we interviewed more than 300 CEOs and found that nearly 60% of Saudi business leaders described artificial intelligence as an opportunity to expand business. However, there was still fear regarding human capabilities when it came to adopting artificial intelligence. Welcome to the Strategic View, where we explore perspectives, insights, and experiences from leaders and experts from different industries. I am Aous Chazel, a director in Strategic Gears, and joining us today is Professor Mark Fritz. Professor Mark Fritz is a leadership specialist and has spoken on leadership in over 50 countries around the world. He has led enterprise change in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, and has taught in MBA programs and executive programs in business schools throughout Europe, including Portugal, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and Sweden. He carries over 25 years of experience and joins us today as a leading expert in understanding leadership and development. Welcome, Professor. AI adoption has been growing incredibly fast, but the implementation has been failing. So people are saying that the technology is being faster than the people who are supposed to implement this technology. Why is this happening?
Well, first, it's an amazing technology, so the capability is huge. And, you know, with any type of implementation or whatever, it's all about the people and also the leadership behind it to drive it. I had some experience with technology change many, many years ago. Over 40 years ago, I implemented enterprise systems in an Egyptian subsidiary, taking it from manual to computers. And I saw what it takes to have that change and so forth. It's a matter of educating the people, but also getting the leadership aligned in terms of utilizing that capability that you get with technology in a way that you can really drive things forward. So you really have to be really strong about where you're going, and also you have to be thinking about what is it we're trying to do in terms of the experience with our clients and everything to get the most out of it. If you think about it, in today's world right now, this technology is very good at what and how, but why and where is what guides what and how. And what you type in to ChatGPT is the script is context. And so it's really about, we need to have very strong context providers, and you have to think about what you're trying to achieve with the AI so that you get that benefit from it. And so if you don't frame the context well, you're not going to get the benefit out of it too.
Thank you. That's very insightful. So another question is, AI is not the only disruptive technology that we've seen, maybe in our lifetimes. So the internet, for example, came over around 4 decades ago, and it drastically changed how people, organizations, even governments interact between each other. So how would artificial intelligence disrupt or change the way these entities are interacting between each other? How should the leadership manage change in the light of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think, if you think about it, we had the internet, we had digitalization, we had all the mobile communications capability. You can work from anywhere. All this changed the way we did our work. But we never had a tool like AI come that could really change the how of the work and the what of the work even that way and so forth. So it's just dramatically, it's kind of like we have to have really open eyes as to what and how can we use this. And it's going to change people's jobs as they do it, because they're going to use AI to do even more and even better, with less and so forth. So I think it's a matter of thinking about how do I want to transform as leaders and how do I want my organization to transform. You're going to have to create some role models who are adopting this and understand it as well. But if you think about it, we have to train everybody up on AI to a certain extent, because whatever we're not really aware of or we're comfortable with, we tend to, avoid. We don't want to embrace it. And so there has to be something that, we're doing it with our people, not to our people. And I think that's another key.
I'm sure that a lot of people received internet in their offices, but they didn't really know what to do with it. And a lot of people started saying we are an internet maybe enabled company, where maybe the tool, the internet in that case, was not, it was also a tool for a specific job. And I'm sure they had to go through some type of change management as well, right, to adopt the internet. So what are the similarities?
Some leaders who were very supportive of being innovative, I had a limited amount of time, so I have to get the systems in by a certain date, and I could transform things, but I needed the leadership to be forward-looking to say this is the opportunity, but also support it, focus people, and make it happen. And to a certain extent, when I was in Japan, we had warehouses across the country. I had a distribution manager who was very, very supportive of different things. He could see the opportunities, and together, in the span of putting the systems in, I eliminated all the warehouses except the main one. And we had a much more innovative strategy enabled by the information that was there. So I think you need strong leadership seeing that opportunity, but also the leadership to carry the implementation forward. And it has to be at the level where you can make it happen. And so that means that we have to have stronger leaders at each level of the organization where we're trying to drive that particular change.
What is then the reason for the contrast that we're seeing? So I'm assuming that when internet came, adopting it or implementing it, not only adopting internet, was a lot faster than what is happening today. Do you think this is related to AI progressing really fast? Or so was internet just an easier tool? Or did they actually also struggle in adopting the internet? We just don't know it because it's past, and I don't really think about it because it was before I was born.
I don't know. If looking at it from my side, from a coach and a leadership expert, I just think that the whole number of tools we're getting now with AI and so forth is becoming more confusing and so forth. So the choice of, do I have the right one? Are we doing the right approach? And I think a lot of companies just have to create different pilots and learn and as we go. And, there's an old study, too. It says, we learn 80% from our mistakes than from books and things like that. I think we have to make some mistakes. We just have to make them faster, learn from them, and then really put strong efforts behind the things that we know it's really going to help us move forward. If you think about it, there's nothing different about how we're driving change with AI. We just have to do everything better and faster than what we did in the past.
Because the technology itself is fast.
Because technology is just amazing in terms of its capability, which means that we have to grow stronger leaders. I would say also we have to get much better in very large organizations in terms of project management and program management, because we have to figure out and take those learnings much quicker, figure out what was really working well, and then put a lot of resources and efforts behind those things so that we can be out in front of others in terms of using AI to deliver that different client experience.
Would you, in this regard, would you recommend entities try new AI tools, make mistakes, and go on and try to learn, as they say, on the job? Or would it be better to hold off AI, try to gets their business in order first, and then try to adopt new AI?
I think you got to learn. You got to learn. You got to just try different pilots and so forth, and look at it from both the tool perspective, are these the right tools, and look at it from what's needed by the leadership in order to put this in place. Because the end result is you're going to want to take something from a project and put it into the day-to-day where it's embraced, and also it can be enhanced as you go along the way. And so I think my advice would be put your best people into these pilots, because they'll be the best disciples and when you move this into more of a main day-to-day operation.
So you mentioned about, for example, your journey in the implementation back in the internet days in Japan. So while working on that project from an implementation perspective, to get a little bit more practical, what were things you noticed, or even, let's say, small hints that would help someone in the implementation phase to actually move and implement that change?
I'd say there's two things, and especially that came when I started to do my last implementation in Japan. It's always packaging the change in terms of what the advantage will be to the organization, the leader, and so forth, right? So it's not saying this is what I think is good for you, understanding what the opportunity is for them and providing them an opportunity, an enabler that will help them. So in many ways, when I got to my implementations, I'm kind of like also an internal marketer, marketing this, but in a way of satisfying their opportunities or solving their problems. The second part is you always have to take into account the culture, because if you're not working within how the culture works, you're never going to be successful. And you have to make sure that you're not fighting the culture with the change. So in some ways, you might have to explain the change in a way that culture understands, yes, it's part of this, it's not going against it. I learned that through the first couple implementations, and when I got to Japan, I asked for a senior manager to work alongside me so that when we're doing the implementation, we're putting it in the right way from a culture perspective. And as you know, in Japan, Japanese are very consensus-oriented. So you can't go around that and just be more directive. You have to allow for that consensus process as well. So I think in a lot of ways, it's aligning people towards what we want to accomplish, and also doing it in a way where they feel comfortable it's part of their culture.
So you talked about leaders. What's required about the modern leadership in order to be able to implement actually those tools?
I think, the leaders of the future, you can no longer be a micromanager. Micromanagers were the experts around the how. AI will be a very good expert around the how. You don't need a manager that way. I think managers have to be more, as I said before, the context provider. Really being much more aware and why we're going, reinforcing our focus and everything, what we want. And we get our people to utilize AI and other technology tools in a way that it helps us deliver that, better and faster. So I think leaders, I look at leaders with three capabilities that they're going to need in the future. And two of those are around, their thinking ability. They have to be much better critical thinkers, what's most important in different things. They have to be much better systemic thinkers. Because if you think you want to get the most use out of AI and so forth, you have to think about things in a systemic way. How does it all link? And how you're going to utilize AI to do it even better. And then the other thing is influencing and alignment. If you think the AI can give you the what and the how better, then you have to really align leadership, everybody around in terms of why and where. And that takes very good influencing skills. And so the ability to influence is going to be important. And I think also in some ways, we have to be much better at managing projects. So I think the ones that are going to move fast with AI are going to very much have a good client focus, what we're going to get out of it. They're going to have strong leadership to manage how we're going to go after this, what's the benefits we're going to get, what are the key enablers, in that, and they're going to manage the interrelationships across all the different projects in terms of delivering this. So I think, we're going to have to be much better at managing change from the people side, because I think the technical side and the operational side will be a little more clear and faster to do it, but the people side won't be as fast as the technology.
I want to ask more about the different types of entities. So, we've seen a lot of entities and companies adopt AI, and we also see a lot of, for example, government entities try to adopt more AI, for example, when it comes to maybe answering questions or answering different requests. But also we have startups that use AI tools for different other applications. Would the capability, the human capability needed by those different, I don't want to say sectors, but types of entities, would it be different on how we approach AI?
Well, I think the approach as you go on those is it's all about gaining the alignment. It's related to the culture and gaining an alignment for the change you want to accomplish. AI is so amazing in terms of an enabler. How big a bite do you want to take off in terms of getting the advantage of it? And I think it's a matter of lining the leadership around it so that you can implement that.
And I think this is why we see, for example, startups or at least small companies that are 5 to 10 people faster to adopt AI because they have maybe better collaboration, given it's a small team. So we see different tools that they use.
Because they're more focused about what they want to accomplish with it, right? They're very focused on what they want to accomplish. They're sizing up things, or they're saying, I want to get this done within 90 days. And they're figuring out what they're going to be able to learn and do from 90 days and so forth. Where in larger corporations, you have, oftentimes it's a decision searching for a decision maker. And so it's going to require a lot more proactive decision making in terms of exploiting the advantages that come with this. You're going to have a lot more knowledgeable people as to what's possible as well along the way. But I think I think for me, some of the real key roles that are needed in the future are these program managers, because there are going to be tons of different projects going on, but you're going to have to align those, and not everything can be aligned through the formal structure of a company. And if you think about it, in your career and everything, you learn more in projects and programs than you did in the day-to-day jobs. So I think, there's a number of people saying that this is driving us more towards a project type of organization, which I believe if you're going to implement, AI very quickly, you're going to be more gaining those benefits through projects and so forth, and then really working to get those into the day-to-day as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think you mentioned about implementing those AI tools, and it got me thinking, do you think that there is something that's happening actually now in organizations, especially larger ones, where the goal sometimes is to have an AI tool instead of the AI tool being an answer to a goal, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's like the doctor giving you medicine before they understand what's wrong with you, right? Yeah. I think it's really important. It's so important to understand what you want to accomplish. What is it that you're trying to do, and utilize the tool to help you accomplish that faster. Generally, you're going to need people with understanding about what capabilities can it bring, but it's equally important that those people also understand what we're trying to accomplish too. And it's always a matter of matching what's our capability to deliver with what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's the type of people you're going to need very, very strong people in, who can understand what we want to change and also know the capabilities of making that change.
So understand the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
Kind of also.
And it's the right tool is not necessarily the tool, it's the right person.
Yeah.
It's the person who has those capabilities. So I think we have to grow people who have the knowledge of AI, but also have a very strong knowledge about what we want to accomplish with AI.
Yeah.
But then we have to empower them as well to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be much more an enabler as leaders in the future, if we want to adopt all this capability faster.
So let me just take it a bit more direct, maybe. So you're an expert in designing learning programs for such entities, actually. So what would be your recommendation to actually design a full program that would support those leaders?
Yeah, for me, the program is you're always introducing concepts and ideas, but you're giving them a time to talk between themselves and learn from each other as well. And I think the programs that facilitate, taking on new ideas, learning from each other, how can we implement it, and also helping each other implement it is really important. In my programs I always have, reflection and peer coaching, where they reflect what are they taking away, and then they help each other with ideas to go make it happen. And often I call them accountability partners, so that they hold each other accountable for what they're going to do after these programs. Knowledge is not the key to success. So the librarians would have been the most important people in the world. It's applying it. And I think we have to be much better at helping our leaders apply what they're learning. And I think the more that they're learning from each other as well, the more they feel that they can take much more action than if they're just doing it by themselves.
So how would a different culture make for a different training, designing a different training in light of that culture?
I'll give you my own perspective in terms of when I work with companies. I'm basically asking only two questions, because it gets at the culture element. I say, what's the type of thinking you'd like to see more of happening consistently in your leaders' minds? In other words, so if they also have I need to transfer, that we need to transform our culture that way, that's a target. And the second one is, what behaviors would you like to see more of in your leaders, and them doing it more consistently? Because if they do it consistently, it becomes a habit. So if you think about it, culture is on the values and behavior side, it's about thinking and behaviors. And as I said before, having a clear target you're going after. But, basically, if I go into any organization, you could do lots and lots of analysis, but there's only two things I want. What thinking do you want to see more of in your leaders? What behaviors do you want to see more of in your leaders? Because that's the target for any type of training, because the training should reinforce those as we go through the training, and out of that training should come more leaders with that type of thinking and that type of behavior.
So maybe even correcting the behavior or the thinking of fellow colleagues before actually trying to just push an AI tool, right, into the company.
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, I always look at it from those two things. So I think if you're thinking about a leadership assessment, you have to say, okay, what's the thinking and the behaviors necessary to fully utilize and exploit these AI tools in the organization? And analyze your leaders based on that thinking and that behaviors. Who's going to be the ones who are going to be the right role models going forward? And in my assessments, I always give people a quick behaviors type of questionnaire. And in the questionnaire, it asks them, do you do this occasionally? Do you do it frequently? Or it's a habit? Right? And the more that we adopt those as a habit. So I think in some ways, we have to have more robust leadership assessments as you go forward. For sure, because the requirements of thinking and behaviors in leaders is going to have to be much stronger than it is today. And as I said, you're not going to be able to micromanage people in the future. The how and the what will be much easier with AI. It's a matter of why and where. It's more context, and that's where leadership has to be.
I think to conclude, there is a specific leadership mentality that is required to be able to manage a change that is as huge as AI, given that AI is changing, but really, really fast. And because just naturally, this robust leadership is not mainstream. It's I would say, It's very few companies that already have that. And this is why we see implementation, I don't want to say failing, but not as available as the adoption of AI, because everyone's adopting AI, but only those who already have very robust leaders are those who are actually able to implement those new tools and this new technology, basically.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting how you say it. Our leaders are going to have to be much better storytellers. In other words, people embrace things when they understand the story, but now the capability is so huge, those stories have to be much more robust so that people can see themselves a part of it. In other words, the companies that do very well explain a direction or a vision in a way that their people can personally connect to it. And so I think our ability to describe the future has to get better in order for people to see the part of it there. And it has to be not in terms of dreamland. It has to acknowledge some of the things we have to deal with in terms of getting there. But I think we have to be framing the context in much more powerful ways. Leaders have to be much better storytellers, but they have to understand the complexities of what we're trying to accomplish. That means they have to have very good critical thinking, systemic thinking, and the ability to influence the world around them to go after it.
Clear. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you for having me.